Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I love to see all of you in the chat, sharing that you're here and from all the different places. It's really exciting. And we're excited to be here today with you to talk about a very important topic, which is web performance. We have amazing speakers here. No sound? I hope you can hear me. Someone said that they can't hear. Can you hear? Okay, hopefully. Hello to you all. Thanks for joining. And we're excited to talk to you today about web performance. Okay, so you can hear. I am unmuted as far as I can see. Some of you can hear me, some of you can't. I hope that those of you who can't hear me figure it out. We will be sharing a recording at the end after this is done, a link to the recording so you all can watch it hopefully then. But I really hope you'll be able to hear us now because doing it live is really fun. And I love that we can interact with you in the chat. So thanks for joining us. We have amazing speakers today, some of the leading experts in the field of web performance who are doing actual practical things to make the web better for all of us, whether it's by working on improving WordPress performance or Elementor performance or both. So I'm really excited for that today. Thanks, Estrance, for sharing that tip on how to hear. So let's get started. Okay, 1 second. All right, hold on. Sorry about this. 1 second. I'm going to share again. Okay, so just a bit about me. I'm your host and moderator for today. My name is Miriam Schwab. I've been very involved in the WordPress community for over 15 years. I organized 5 WordCamps here in Israel, actually, and I've been speaking at many WordCamps around the world over the years, including the major regional ones and other local ones, and I'm very passionate about WordPress. I founded a WordPress development agency, sold that, and I founded a company called Stratic. I was the co-founder and CEO, and Stratic was acquired by Elementor about 1.5 years ago, and I am now in a position called Head of WordPress Relations at Elementor. So that's me, and I'm excited to be hosting this for you. Yes, the recording will be available after. We have amazing speakers today. Like I said, leaders in the space. We have Adam Silverstein from Google, who is a developer relations engineer and also a WordPress core committer, very involved in the WordPress performance team and on the Google Chrome team. Joe McGill is with us, Associate Director of Engineering at 10up. 10up is one of the largest WordPress agencies in our space, working with leading brands, including the White House. So also Joe is a core committer to WordPress, one of the leads on the WordPress performance team, and has worked on very significant projects around performance on WordPress that have impacted all of us for the good and made WordPress better for all of us. And then, of course, we have Shilo Ishimini from the Elementor team, my colleague and coworker. Elementor is, Shilo is a performance product lead at Elementor. He's been leading product at Elementor for 5 years and has been passionate about WordPress for over 12 years. And Shilo is our resident performance expert and working with the great and talented folks at Google and 10up on improving Elementor's performance, which makes the Elementor experience better for everyone. So let's just look at what we're going to be talking about today. So first, I'm just going to do a bit of an intro on WordPress performance and why we're here today to talk about this. Then Adam will be talking about optimizing core web vitals and WordPress performance. Then Joe will be talking about how the WordPress performance team scales LCP, or largest contentful paint, scores for all, which means for all of us as well. And Shilo will be talking about faster, smoother, better, Elementor's performance focus. So hopefully you'll also get a high level and better understanding of how this whole world of performance works, what these terms mean that we're all hearing all the time, how to make the most of the reports that we're getting in terms of our performance, and some tips on how you yourselves can also make your sites faster. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I'm going to be paying attention here to the comments. So feel free to leave any questions, and we will try to get to whatever we can. We're looking forward to answering whatever we can. Any questions that you have, feel free to leave feedback while we're talking as well. Yes, there will be a recording of this live stream, and we'll be sharing the link to everyone by email, everyone who registered, after the event is over. So stay tuned for that. I'll also be paying attention to questions while our speakers are talking, and then maybe in between we'll take one or two to answer as we're going along. So that's the agenda for today. So why are we here to talk about web performance? Well, web performance is actually one of the most impactful ways to make the web better, maybe up there with accessibility. By making the web more performant, we're creating a better user experience for everyone, both the end users who are visiting websites and also those of us who are building websites and using them either for our businesses or organizations or anything like that. If our sites are doing better or performing better, then they will also perform better for us on a business level. So there's a lot of studies that have been done about the importance of performance and speed in terms of the results that you'll get from your websites. Here's just one. 53% of mobile site visitors leave a page that takes longer than 3 seconds to load. I've seen studies that show that people bounce if it takes 2 seconds. All of us don't have patience for things that take too long. There's too much out there. There's too much to see and too much to do for us to spend time waiting for pages to load. So just like us, the same with our end users who want to access information quickly and don't have patience to wait around. And we owe it to them to be able to deliver content quickly. Sorry. But as I'm sure many of you have experienced, on the one hand, we know that web performance is important and we all want to achieve it. But on the other hand, it can be very hard to achieve. It can sometimes feel like an uphill battle. There's a lot of information out there. We're not sure what to do with it. It's hard to know what to focus on. We'll run performance reports and it can be hard to figure out what we're supposed to do next once we've got the reports, those kinds of things. So even though it's important, it can be hard to achieve. Those of us in the WordPress space and the Elementor space, we actually have a very wide reach. I don't know if you know the numbers around market share, but WordPress powers over 43% of the internet, according to some numbers. And that's a huge percentage of the web. It means that WordPress has an impact for good and sometimes for less good on the web in general. Just to give you some context about how huge that number is, the next largest CMS is Shopify with 3 or 4%. So WordPress is by far the winner from that perspective. And anything that we do to make WordPress perform better means that almost half of the internet is performing better. Elementor also has a really large scale and wide reach. Elementor powers 9% of the internet. Again, if you compare that to Shopify, which is 3 or 4%, you can still see how significant the impact is in terms of Elementor websites. And if you combine the two of them, if we can make Elementor faster and WordPress faster, then a lot of people win. By the way, Elementor's 9% represents something like 20% of all WordPress sites. So we're talking about significant scale. So as I mentioned, Adam and Joe are both very involved. Joe is full-time on the WordPress performance team. I don't know, again, how much you know about the WordPress project in and of itself, but it's an open source project with thousands of contributors who are working to always make it better in different ways. And one of the teams is the performance team. And the performance team has been investing a lot of effort in making WordPress more performant, again, to make the internet better for everyone, essentially. And they've been showing some really impressive and exciting improvements over the time that they've been working. So for example, significant server-side improvements, loading faster for block themes. These numbers are from internal testing that the WordPress performance team did, but still, that's very significant and it matters. And you can correlate that to improvements across the web, improved script loading strategies, improved image lazy loading. And because of the importance of the performance team, we at Elementor are very proud to be contributing to that performance team in partnership with 10up. We are sponsoring a contributor to the team. And in that way as well, we are working and hoping to contribute to making the internet faster and better for everyone. So on the Elementor side, in conjunction with Google and 10up, and of course, the great people on our own team, we've been showing significant improvements in our own products, the plugin and our hosting products. TTFB, time to first byte, has improved up to 60% since version 3.16 if you're running Elementor Pro. And we moved our hosting to Google Cloud's highest tier. Elementor's hosting is running on Google Cloud, and we achieved speed increases of up to 190%. And this is just where we're at. And there's so much more to do. So we're excited to see what's next. So our speakers are going to come on now, but just before they get started, and I just want to share a few things. And of course, you can always reach out to me and comment here if you have any questions along the way. But first, the chat is in the sidebar. I see a lot of you have found it and are using it, and that's great. So keep doing that, and we will keep an eye on there. We will also be streaming to communities on Facebook. Actually, sorry, that didn't work out. Never mind. Sorry about that. Dedicated Q&A at the end. And like I said, we'll be answering some questions along the way. And the link to the recording will be emailed. People keep asking, so I'll just say it again. You all get a link to the recording. It might take a few days, but we'll send it out to all of you who registered. So, and then we'll upload it to YouTube also and other places that people can access it. Sorry, Facebook. Okay, and just also before we get started, I just wanted to mention that Elementor is running a very exciting campaign right now. For the first time, you can get 30 days free on our hosting. And not only that, if you sign up for that free trial and you share feedback with us about the hosting, you will be eligible for some amazing prizes. If you go to this link here, Elementor, it's elementto/makes-sense, or use the QR code. You'll see there's a form there to submit feedback as you're using the trial, and people who submit good feedback are eligible to win amazing prizes like MacBook Pro, Mac Studio, PlayStation, all sorts of gaming fun stuff, OLED screens. Yeah, so it's really fun stuff. So please check that out. All right, so that is enough of that. Now we will get started with our first speaker, Adam. Adam, as I said, he'll be talking about optimizing Core Web Vitals and WordPress performance, and sharing some really useful information for all of us about these mysterious terms and things like that from his extensive knowledge. So I'm going to get off now and bring Adam on. Okay, so here's bring Adam. Hey, Adam.
Hey.
Thanks for being here with us.
Yay, glad to be here.
So I'm going to remove myself, and then you can get started.
Yeah. And I think you need to start the recording. I don't see the recording running, so make sure that that's... Oh, maybe it is running now. Okay, cool. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that is working. People can see my screen, hopefully. Great. So I'm going to be giving sort of a little background, going back a little ways about how Google has gotten involved in web performance and tried to elevate the web, and sort of leading up to the establishment of the performance team in our collaboration with Elementor. So probably most of you have heard of the Core Web Vitals. These were introduced back in 2020, and they really aim to measure user experience on the web, which is actually kind of a new idea. I think in the past, we mostly thought about performance as a raw speed metric. How fast did the site load? What is the time to first byte? When is the first contentful paint? These new metrics introduced a way of trying to measure user experience. How did users feel that the website was loading? Was it interactive? Was it responsive to their input? And also, did things shift around? And those aimed at kind of measuring how good of an experience users are having on the web. And of course, Google provides all kinds of tools where this data is available to you. You can use Lighthouse. There's also third-party tools like page speed test. And the data is available in public data sets like the Crux data set about how public sites are performing. So these are essentially tools that allow you to get better insights into how your site is being experienced by your end users. And that's actually different than how you might experience your site when you test it, using what we call a lab test, when you're testing it locally or even with a service that tests it. May not be the same as how actual users in the field experience your site. So that's what's neat about these Web Vitals. And it turns out that WordPress is actually not doing that great on Web Vitals, and especially when we compare it to some of these admittedly closed platforms that have more control over their stack. But WordPress is the light blue line here at the bottom of the chart. And this is showing what percentage of sites, what percentage of origins are passing all of the Core Web Vitals. So they have good Core Web Vitals, across the metrics that we measure. And while the web as a whole is increasingly, growing in performance, and WordPress is also growing, we really haven't progressed much compared to the web, which is the dark blue line there. But you can see that lately, in the last few kind of cycles, we are starting to edge up against the web as a whole. Of course, WordPress is a big part of that web, so anything that we do will also bring up the web as a whole. But recognizing this, I think the team at Google, we saw that there's an opportunity here to kind of lift up the web by working with WordPress and trying to improve performance of the platform and really the whole ecosystem that is built up around WordPress. And that leads us to the performance team, which I'm going to talk about next. And I think following the performance team is actually a great way for you to see what we're doing in WordPress core. So we have a blog that you can follow, where we post meeting notes, and we also have a weekly meeting that you can attend. And the whole goal of the performance team really is to improve performance in WordPress core by, building new features or APIs for core, or improving how we're doing things in WordPress core. So this includes our Performance Lab plugin, where we get to test new features that we hope will land in core. And this is a great way for you as a user or a site owner to test these and check them out before they make it to core, and especially to give feedback about things that maybe aren't working for you. WordPress is a huge, diverse ecosystem, and when we build new features, it's challenging to account for all of the possible ways that people might use WordPress. So having people test out the plugin, star the repo, and follow the plugin work there is really helpful to the project. So, we've actually have been able to be really successful. These last few releases from 6.0 forward in particular, we've made great strides in getting some really solid improvements in just terms of how quickly core can load, that time to first byte, also introducing new features like the script strategy API and the lazy loading, automatic, HTML native lazy loading. Those things just improve every site that's built on WordPress. And we see that in the numbers, both when we test the releases and when after the release comes out, when we check the field data. And another new thing that we're doing in WordPress now is we have a performance lead for each release, and we're doing very regular testing, especially when we get to our beta and release candidates. We test those, we benchmark them against previous releases to make sure that we're doing things thoughtfully, that we're not regressing on performance, and that if we're introducing big new features, that those don't have a negative impact on performance. So it's an ongoing effort, and we've made a lot of progress. That said, it is important to recognize that even if WordPress core performs fantastically well across metrics, that doesn't mean that WordPress sites in the wild will perform that well. And the reason for that is that WordPress by itself isn't actually what people run. They start with WordPress, and then they plugins that give them the features they need to run their websites. As probably a lot of you know, the more plugins you add to your site, there's sort of a negative impact on performance. So it's not like a given that will always be the case, but in general, as you load your site up with more and more code, more and more functionality, more and more plugins, you're going to see that maybe the performance that started out great isn't so great anymore. And so that realization means that you can't just fix all the performance problems in core. You need to actually bring the whole ecosystem up and essentially provide an incentive. The idea is to provide, an incentive or a value of performance to the ecosystem. So when plugin authors start to see that their customers are demanding more performance, they can focus on that. They'll be incentivized to focus on that as something that they need to get into their plugins. And that is a slow transition. That's something that I think as an ecosystem we've struggled with, and there's plenty of room to improve there. And of course, Elementor, being such a huge part of the WordPress ecosystem, is a really natural fit for us to work with. And that brings us to our partnership with Elementor. And this is a picture of me and Shiloh at WordCamp US doing individual consultations, which was tremendously fun. But I think I just wanted to talk about why personally I'm so excited about working with Elementor and why it's been such a fruitful partnership. First of all, as you heard, Elementor is deeply invested in performance. They really take this seriously, and they've made huge strides, and they've invested resources into improving the performance of their platform. And that is the kind of person you want to work with when you're trying to get change made. You have to be motivated. Also, Elementor sites, just like WordPress sites, have plenty of room to improve. And that's a good thing. That gives you places to work, places to actually change what you're doing to make Elementor sites better. And also, similar to WordPress, Elementor is like an ecosystem unto itself. There's plugins that are built on top of it. There's agencies that build Elementor sites. So Elementor has, similar to WordPress core, has a responsibility to their users to make sure that anything that they introduce doesn't just break what people have done, and that changes are made in a thoughtful way. And also, similar to what we're doing in core now with Gutenberg and site builders, Elementor's been at this a long time. Well before we had Gutenberg, Elementor was doing site building. And I think that means that we have an opportunity to learn from Elementor in core. So I'm deeply involved in WordPress core and building there. So to me, this is an opportunity to also learn about what challenges Elementor has and apply those learnings back into what we're doing in core. So with that, I think that actually brings me to the end of my section. And I think Joe is going to go next and tell us about some more details.
Thank you. That was really interesting. I especially could relate to what you were saying about plugins, that on the one hand, often when people are talking about how to make their site more performant, people will be like, don't use any plugins, except for that's one of the beauties of the WordPress ecosystem. And I think it's one of the reasons it's reached 43%, because people can easily just plug things in and get functionality without having to code it. So saying don't use them isn't the solution. The solution is working with the plugin ecosystem to help that part of it also be more performant.
Yeah, and I didn't really dig in, but I think the same thing is true of like when you have a builder, when you give people these tools that let them build a site to their, with incredible flexibility. It's like with great power is great, like you also give them the ability to mess up things and do things in a way that isn't performant. So how do you constrain that? How do you provide guidelines or feedback to users so that they make the right choices? It's the same kind of challenge we face in WordPress core.
Yeah, it's very true. On the one hand, we do want to educate and help people build their sites in the best way possible, but I think the ecosystem also has to take into account people who build sites in a messy way. One of the parts of the mission of WordPress is democratization of publishing. So that means everyone should be able to build a site, even if they're not a web expert, and get their voice out there. So we need to take that into consideration as well. So yeah, okay, well, thank you so much. And I'm going to bring up Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Thanks for being with us. Just one thing, someone asked for my email address in the chat. I will leave it there soon. And also, I saw a lot of product feedback. We always want to hear it. You can DM our Twitter account at Elementor. And also, once I share my email address, feel free to share your product feedback and your complaints. I see people complaining about things. We want to hear it. So please do that. Okay, so Joe, I don't see your... can you share your slides and then I can add it to here?
Sure can. I wasn't sure when you needed me to start that.
Great. Yeah, okay, great. All right, so I'm adding that. All right, we can see that well, and I will go away.
Perfect. So. All right. Thank you for inviting me to come be a part of this as well. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about some of the specifics of what the WordPress performance team has been doing this year, particularly around trying to help improve LCP scores, largest contentful paint scores, at the scale of WordPress, which has already been talked about as like 43% of the web, which is just like a huge undertaking. A little background on me. My name is Joe McGill, as I was introduced. I've been working with WordPress for like 15 years as a core committer for I think like 8 or 9 maybe. have been involved in some performance features for a long time, and I'm excited that at the beginning of this past year, around January, I was able to join TinUp to be a part of this WordPress performance team full time. It's something I've been passionate about for a long time, just to help improve the performance of the web at scale, and it's something we get to do every day. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. So. First, just to go over some terms that I want to talk about, LCP, largest contentful paint, really is just a measurement of how long does it take for the largest piece of content that your visitor sees on your website, how long does it take for that to show up? The guidance from Google is that 2.5 seconds, anything faster than 2.5 seconds is a good experience. Anything from 2.5 seconds to 4 seconds is something that needs improvement. Anything that takes more than 4 seconds is considered a bad user experience. Another web vital, not one of the core web vitals, but one of the web vitals that is important that we understand in this conversation is time to first byte, which is a measurement of how fast does your hosting or your server respond to a request from a user. So if I click on a link to your website, how long does it take for your website to respond with some markup, some data that my browser can start to make some sense of? Anything under 800 milliseconds is considered a good user experience. Anything from 800 milliseconds to 1800 milliseconds needs improvement. And anything that takes longer than that is considered a poor user experience. Why do I want to talk about both of these things together? So here is a kind of a basic overview of what goes into that largest contentful paint, that LCP score. So what has to happen for your largest contentful paint, your largest piece of content to be painted on a user's device is first, the HTML document has to get to that user's device. That is that blue bar that you see at the top, that is time to first byte. And how fast does your server respond to that request? The second thing that usually happens on a request is that any scripts or styles that are blocking, which is anything that does not use some sort of like an async or defer loading strategy, the browser will load those first before continuing to try to render anything else, just to make sure that your site doesn't render and then this new styles or something get loaded that would change the styles and give like a jumpy experience. Next, the rest of the page is scanned and rendered. Anything else that needs to be loaded is loaded, including any images that have not loaded at that point, any other async scripts, that sort of thing. So these are the three things that we care the most about: server response time, removing blocking resources as much as possible, and improving the way that browsers load images to just load them more efficiently. Okay. Adam showed you one of these earlier. I want to talk specifically about some of the progress we've made on these two metrics specifically. In January of 2022, which is when the performance team originally started, I think somewhere around there, only 32% of all WordPress sites were scoring as having a good LCP score. Only 20% were scoring as having a good time to first byte score. Now, after about a year, a little over a year and a half, coming up on 2 years, we have seen that improve to 41.5% of all sites are showing to have a good LCP score, and 22% are showing a good time to first byte. If you break that down to even further, to see like the top 1 million sites, those numbers are actually way higher. It's like half of all sites in the top 1 million sites have good LCP scores, and about a third have good time to first byte. So we're seeing some progress, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about the specific things that we have done over the course of this year to help try to move those numbers as we have been paying attention to LCP scores. So back in WordPress version 6.2, which was the first release of the year this year, the team did several things to try to help not just impact these scores, but kind of set ourselves up for success over the course of this year. We did a big profiling analysis of the WordPress application to see like where are the bottlenecks when WordPress is trying to build a page and send it back to your users. Where is all the where is it spending the most time? Are there places that there's opportunities for us to decrease that time so we can improve that server response time, that time to first byte, which will then have an impact on a better LCP score. We also added some automated performance testing to the WordPress just sort of the development process, so that as new things are added constantly to WordPress, we can start to get a sense of, did something get added to WordPress over the course of the development cycle that either had a big impact in terms of making a positive impact on performance or a negative impact on performance or a regression that gives us an opportunity to sort of like look and see, okay, did somebody make a mistake? Can we improve a new feature that got added, that sort of thing. Both making improvements and making sure that any big regressions don't make it to you in a release. Just like in your own web projects, one of the first things that I would recommend for trying to improve performance is you need to measure what you're doing, right? Like you need to start with a baseline of how am I performing now? And as you're changing things, as you're tweaking things, as you're adding things, continue to do that measurement to see, am I making a positive impact or a negative impact? So the other things that we worked on in WordPress 6.2, we had identified several places in the application where we could improve server response time. I won't go into the details, but we made several improvements, caching some data, doing some different things that help to improve that overall server response time. Also improve some database caching for queries that get made quite a bit. And so that was sort of the focus of 6.2. In WordPress 6.3, which came out, I think, in August of this year, we focused more on the front end side and less on the server side. So those purple and green bars from my first sort of that LCP waterfall that I showed. So a couple of the big things that we did is there is an emoji loader script that WordPress bundles by default that helps to make sure that people that don't have access to all the emojis on whatever their devices get those sort of filled for them using some JavaScript. The way that was originally introduced several years ago in WordPress was not loading efficiently and was causing that blocking piece to have a negative impact on LCP. So we did some work to optimize the way that works so that it does not sort of like block the rest of the rendering process, and that was a big improvement to LCP scores. We also introduced a way directly in WordPress when you register scripts and styles as a developer or scripts specifically as a developer, a way for you to tell WordPress that you want to have those loaded asynchronously, or it's deferred until after the page has loaded, sort of to get them out of the way of that critical rendering path. And then the third thing that we worked on is improving the way that images load. So that's something that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. One of the things that we found is that several years ago, WordPress introduced the idea of native lazy loading of images into WordPress. And when it was originally added, basically it was pretty naive in the implementation, which was let's just lazy load everything. Browsers will end up, anything that's in the viewport will automatically get loaded anyway. But what we found was that this actually has a negative impact on performance. So by telling the browser that an image that even that is your LCP image that is at the top of the viewport, by telling the browser to lazy load that, it was waiting until way after a lot of the other resources were loaded to start to download that image. And images, as many of you probably know, are one of the biggest pieces of data on your page. It takes a long time to download. So that creates this unnecessary delay in users being able to see those images. So even on your own sites, this is something that you can check. Make sure that lazy loading is not happening on any big images that are higher up on your web page. And then we also made use of this new HTML feature that's in the spec, where you can set fetch priority high to any images that are likely to be in the top of the page. And that is a way to tell the browser even more to prioritize those images more highly. And that was a big part of what we've continued to iterate on. How do we make these decisions more accurate to improve that image loading over the course of the last several releases. The impact of those changes have been really, really great. So one of my colleagues that works on the team from Google, Felix, he recently did some field analysis using some of the data from Google to see to compare WordPress websites that were running WordPress 6.2 in July against ones that updated to 6.3 by September. And this is the improvement that we saw. So for any sites that are using classic themes, so not block themes, we saw an 11% improvement for any of those sites if they had an image that was their LCP piece of content. For block themes, we saw an 8% improvement. Now we can't totally take all the credit for that. There's lots of reasons why those improvements may have happened, but it does correlate to the work that we did when you compare just in a 2-month span, people that upgraded to the new version, which we were really, really excited about being able to see that kind of impact. Also, we even more so is when incorrect lazy loading was fixed and fetch priority was added, we saw huge impact. So in places where we could see previously that websites had an LCP image that had lazy loading applied, and now with the things that we fixed, that is no longer the case. 21.8% improvement in LCP scores for classic themes, 17.8% improvements for block themes. So it really is, it verifies, I think, what our assumptions were, that this was causing a really big problem from a performance standpoint, and it was something that we could take responsibility to fix at scale. And these are the kinds of improvements that I think we get excited about. With that, I'm excited to talk about a little bit of work that we did in partnership with Elementor to take a lot of what we learned in that process and roll that out to users of Elementor. So as of Elementor version 3.17 that just came out recently, there is an experimental feature under settings that you can activate called optimized image loading, where we basically took a lot of the learning from what we did on the WordPress side, but optimized it in ways for Elementor that are specific to the way that Elementor runs, and can be used on no matter what version of WordPress you're using. You can turn this on and it will apply the same optimizations. And it's something that hopefully we will continue to improve. And it's a great way for us with Elementor's scale to get really early feedback of some of the ways that maybe are not obvious to us when we're working on features in WordPress. Ways that the changes that we're making are impacting people who are using tools like Elementor and others to run their site. So we've been really excited about sort of this early experiment with working together on rolling, some of these optimizations out to users of other platforms, and are looking forward to continuing to do so. And I think that and some other things are what I think we're going to talk more about with Shiloh in a little bit. But that's pretty much all I have for my time.
Great, thank you. That was very interesting and a lot of really useful information. Someone brought up, so actually about the emoji loader optimization. Yeah. So I saw that the performance team worked quite a bit on that. And how many people actually are utilizing that functionality that it's even there?
That's a great question. So it's on out of the box whenever, if you just turn it, like just using WordPress, it is defaulted to on. You can filter it to turn it off. There may be some plugins that will automatically turn it off from a performance standpoint. Yeah. I would have to look. I don't know what the actual raw numbers, but it's still a very large number of sites that are using the emoji loader. I may actually have some of that.
It's just interesting. It needed attention when I don't remember ever actually needing it. And I mean, I'm just a static set of one. It's,
and that's exactly the case. Is most people really don't need that functionality, particularly not in a priority enough way that you need to have it slowing down the rest of your website. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, but it's interesting that's even there. I think it's good to bring awareness to it so that if people looking for other ways to optimize, first of all, to know that it's been optimized by the performance team, and maybe even look into ways to just not having it there if it's possible, if you're not using it. So it's really something I didn't even know about. So it's good to know.
Right.
Okay, great, thanks. So see you soon. And now we're going to bring up Shiloh, my colleague and coworker from Elementor. Hey, Shiloh, how's it going?
Hi, Miriam. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming, joining us in these times. It's not always the simplest, but I appreciate that you're here to talk about, what we've been doing at Elementor. Yeah. And some people have been saying, they want some tips specifically about Elementor. Shiloh's the guy. So pay attention to his talk. It's going to be really interesting. And you can take it from here. So where is your slide?
Screen?
Yeah, share screen, then I can add it. Awesome. Okay.
Great.
All right.
So before deep diving into what I planned for us today, I just wanted to say that Joe's and Adam's presentation are really interesting. I encourage everyone to deep dive and learn a bit into it because those are powerful tools, what they just shared that can help you debug and improve your website score. It's not I put a pinball game with a lighthouse score in this presentation just for to emphasize it, but I think this is super interesting and super important to understand how it works and how the browser evaluates everything and loads everything, because once you understand the waterfall and what just Joe mentioned, you can bypass almost any issue that you have in your website and make it, again, faster and more performant. And I just mentioned faster, but fast isn't the keyword that we are looking for here. I think that the word that we should focus on and aim is good performing website. When you encounter website, when you enter a website, you need it to work. You don't count how many time it took for this asset to load or any other thing. Don't look at the page load time, but take a look at how much time it took for the user to think that the page was loaded. Okay, this is the main thing that I want to share with you before deep diving into what we do and what we did to make this faster and better. So let's start in the beginning before jumping in to where we can impact and what we can do to make Elementor faster. I want to share that when creating a website, I think highly performing websites are a mindset that you need to adapt. This relates to 3 areas of creation. It can relate to designing. When designing a website, when thinking of high performance, you won't put a lot of assets above the fold, assets that are heavy and requires any additional resources such as JavaScript and so on. So this is one thing that you can do when creating a website. The other thing is when developing or building a website using Elementor or any other tool, you need to make sure that the building process is optimized. You need to optimize your images. You need to make sure you're using the correct elements. You need not to invest or not to put a lot of DOM and nested elements when creating it. There are a lot of things that you can do. You need to apply some tactics for improving speed, just like load what you need or don't load what is not present in the page. So those are tactics that you can apply and adjust. And of course, the last phase of improving a website is the running phase. When running a website, along the way, not just when launching it, you have to make sure when updating content, the content is optimized, the content is fast, and you need to make sure that you're tracking your field data. Adam mentioned it in a bit. You have the lab data, which represented by all the Lighthouse scores, tests, and GT metrics or PinDom or anything else. Those are good, but they give you a sense of what you can do or what you cannot do. You need to track your live field data, what your actual users experience when they browse your website. So this is what you should do. As of Elementor, we can take a look of two impact areas of we can affect or impact. The first one is the editor. Of course, when we create a website in a generalized tool, we need to make sure that this tool is optimized and works correctly. Of course, you can make mistakes and you can do some unoptimized outputs from it. You can create a website that is lousy performing and provides bad experience. But you, as the website owner, web creator, you should keep these things in mind. So Elementor provides robust features. It takes into consideration to load only what you need usually. Sometimes we allow this option to you because we don't necessarily know what you're aiming to do. So you should keep this in mind. This means when placing carousels below the fold, trigger the lazy load function or deactivate the lazy load, as well as galleries, as well as background images, and so on. This is the first thing. And of course, the editor itself is highly customizable, so you can do almost anything. And we try to catch all of these things and adjust them accordingly. And in the hosting product that we have, of course, we can have in any hosting, not just in Elementor, you should have some caching applied, so the traffic would stop at the edge and not reach to your server as well. It should be as close as possible to the request, so you should use Content Delivery Network, CDN, to use this. You should have fast loading times, fast response times, which is the TTFB that Adam and Joe mentioned. It should be secure, because this is also something that we should take into consideration when creating a website. You don't want your sites to be defaced or hacked, and it should be stable. You should not worry about if it's working or not, and whatever it's up or down. You need it to be up all the time. Let's focus a bit on those areas. So before deep diving into what we want to do or did, I wanted to look at this graph that you already saw in the previous slides that Joe and Adam presented, but I want to highlight that this one represents only WordPress, all websites, Elementor, and Elementor hosting products. And you can see that in the last few months, we invested a lot in the last 1 year and so, but we can see the fruits from now. Every time we make a change, it takes time to the impact to flow down. So here we can see that the list of the graph, the percentage of origins websites that have good core revile score. And you can see it there here from the field data that although WordPress is below the entire industry, web industry, which represent by 49% of the visitors on desktop, WordPress is 38.3% pass Core Web Vital test. Okay, Elementor hosting in the last month is now passing WordPress scores and reached 41.7% of sites pass Core Web Vitals. This is an amazing statistics, and Elementor is constantly and steady improving, and now stands on 27.1%. One thing about this score is we have a lot of new features that we roll out, but most of the websites, the majority of them, are not necessarily updated with the recent version. So I encourage you, update to the recent versions, and you'll have better performance scores out of the box without doing anything. And I'll share it in a bit. In addition, not only that the desktop is optimized, the mobile as well is optimized, and you can see the steep improvement that you can see here. 37% of the websites and pages that being accessed through mobile are passing Core Web Vitals. So it's a really good improvement, and we are committed to work more on this, and we have more initiative that support this area. As I mentioned, we are committed to providing high-performing websites hosting experience. And when talking about the hosting, we recently released some features. The first one is advanced caching system. We improved it a lot since we launched it, and we are going to improve it even further when needed. But this means that we utilize Cloudflare's caching system, the enterprise grade one, and offers the CDN that they offer as well. Over 285 locations across the world are distributed. And once you activate this feature, which is activated by default to all new websites on our hosting product, you'll already get this bundled inside and without any extra payment. Okay, this is a major improvement and major thing that we implemented that can help you get 100 milliseconds and time to first byte, for example, once this is cached. It is already integrated with all the major WordPress features and WordPress plugins. And once you clear cache, it clears in a smart way what you need and not clears the entire cache of your website. So you have more stuff that you can customize and adjust in this page. I highly recommend try out our hosting and try out this feature as well. It is a highly impactful one. An additional feature that we introduced recently is the accelerated plugins. A problem that we encountered when using, I'd call it rather serverless or edge compute that we run for our hosting product. We saw that a factor of ours, the file system, is fairly slow, and this is something that not only Elementor encounters, but more hosting companies that utilize this approach. Also, we have almost infinite scale that you can work with. This is one of the downsides of this approach, and we try to bypass it by caching and preloading all the plugin files, so it will be served from the memory. Every plugin that is, of course, at the latest versions can get this accelerated plugins from the plugin screen. It will be automatically activated. You don't have to do anything. Just install Elementor, Elementor Pro. Those and Hello Theme. Those are the recent plugins that and themes that are supported right now. In the future, we will add more and more plugins to this system that will improve your server response times, both for the site owner and for the visitor. Of course, when talking about secure and talking about hosting, we need to make sure that our hosting is fairly secure with firewall that we offer, DDoS protection, of course, SSL out of the box for free. And this is something that is a viable thing that we have to take into consideration when deciding on hosting a product. More stuff that we can offer and we are working on is under the hood customization and tweaks. We are working on improving the networking speed, and we are working on improving more under the hood. This is the way I can call it, because it spills into the deep diving into the technical and geeky stuff. But we are working, and we will continue to work to better load balance and improve what you get from your hosting. So it should be fast, it should be reliant, and should be stable, just as I mentioned. Let's proceed and make sure we're working on other few notes about hosting on Elementor hosting your website. If I take a snapshot of May 23 LCP status, we had a year and a half ago, I think we had some analysis that Google team conducted, and it pointed out that the high problem at Elementor, the most impactful low-hanging fruit that we can optimize is the LCP scores. Currently, we are working on it for 1.5 years to try to improve it and make it steady and safe updates for this one. And you can see the fruits of it recently. And in this case, I can take a snapshot of the Elementor hosted websites on May. You can see that only 57% of them have a good LCP score and 22% of them have poor one. And in the last October, this month, we have 73% of good LCP scores, in contradiction to the 12% decrease that we have on the poor percentage. So this is something that we can use. Let's skip to the editor. And I know that we don't have much time, so I'll just be brief. We are introducing some new features, and we introduced it recently. For example, those features are supposed to improve the LCP, supposed to improve the time to first byte, supposed to improve your general performance score. So those are, first of all, if you used Gutenberg to create your page, you're by default on every WordPress installation get Gutenberg assets load. You have Gutenberg assets being loaded. From now on, from version 3.17, if the experiment is active, you'll have Gutenberg assets loaded conditionally. Only if you need them. If you created some content with Gutenberg, you'll have this content loaded. In addition, we already introduced in 3.16, I think, or 17, the optimized image loading, what Joe mentioned, regardless of your WordPress version. In addition, we improved our control loading, which, as Miriam mentioned, improved the time to first byte up to 60% faster when using good and heavy page. We are working on more performance features, such as decide your Google Fonts load method. It should be swapped by default. I suggest you to do this by going to Elementor Settings and Advanced tab and setting it there if it's not there. You should activate all of your performance experiments that we offer, such as inline SVG, improved asset loading, inline CSS. Those help to get better response times and better performance scores. So use this. Go to Elementor, Settings, Features, and activate all the features that are marked with performance. Please take into consideration the status of it, because some of them are stable and some of them are in progress and of making. Okay. In addition, we are planning on releasing more features to this commitment of becoming faster and better. Of course, I saw you ask questions about whether Elementor will switch to a faster or more modern framework. It might happen. We are working on this. Yeah, I can't specify a timeline for this, but this is something that is happening. And two more stuff that we are working on in the near future. We are going to reduce on version 3.18, the next one, improve the control loading mechanism for better TTFB. It's being split into two because the first effort is this. We are going to not load any front-end aspect controls and therefore save up to 700 kilobytes per page load on front-end, okay? Not an editor load. It will improve your scores, the LCP scores, and up to 10%. So this is a nice improvement that we're going to introduce. In the future, we are going to introduce even more robust improvement to this, to load only the controls that you need and used on the page, to make sure that you're using the slimmest way and the fastest server response time, to make sure that your server responds faster and not overloading it with high memory, CPU, etc. And the last one, in collaboration with Google and 10up, we are working on detecting the LCP element better by going over all the breakpoints and specifying which are the elements that are above the fold, and then specify better and not by heuristics which are the above the fold elements, and then applying some tactics such as lazy load or fetch priority high. Those are the things that we're going to do on the editor. In addition, I spoiled the surprise. We are working in new apps. One of them is image optimization app. I saw in the comments that some of you asked what we can do, which is the best plugin to optimize my website. One of the main, as Joe mentioned, one of the main points that we have to take into consideration is the high traffic that you have when you upload some non-optimized images. We are going to introduce a new app that offers intelligent image optimization, which will provide high-performing websites better, and it will be integrated from within Elementor, so it would be easy. Stay tuned for more updates on this, and a new launch date will be shared in the future, in the near future, okay? In addition, we are going to introduce a new package, new Elementor hosting package, that is Elementor Static. This is the next continuation, the next role of Static that was acquired by Elementor, I think, over 1 year ago. It will be integrated into our systems, into our server, and it will provide the most fast and the most optimized performance experience there is up to date. We are going to provide fast static website generation without any hassle. Just click one button and it will publish it. The second one, enterprise grade security. No one can hack your site. Optimal scalability. You can throw as much as scale and visitors on your website and it will work seamlessly, and it will be in an affordable price. It won't be enterprise grade product, but it will be every day product that you can buy and you can use. Those are the main points and things that we are going to focus on in the next future as well. Elementor Static Hosting will be announced soon. This is just a glimpse of what we can offer in the next future. So thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everybody, for joining this. And I think this is it from my end.
Thanks, Shilo. That is a lot of information and great to hear. So we are short on time. I'm just going to bring up Adam and Joe. Hello again. We don't really have time for QA, so maybe we'll just all wrap up with like a minute of some additional things to pay attention to. I think, Adam, a good thing for you to maybe address is Lighthouse and how people can make the most of it. By the way, someone asked if 10up develops plugins. 10up develops one of the plugins, which is Site for Google, which many of you might use. So Joe, maybe you can talk a bit about that or whatever you want. And Shilo, maybe you can share some additional tips about Elementor. So we'll just start with you, Adam, if you want to just wrap things up.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Lighthouse. A tool that I actually really like is called PageSpeed Tests. It's not from Google, but I think it actually uses Lighthouse data under the hood. But what I really like about it is the ability to kind of capture tests, and then you can do comparisons to previous tests. And it also has a really cool feature. I'm not sure if this is in the paid version or the free version, but there is a free version that you can use, and they also have a paid product. But they have the ability to run these experiments where you kind of check some boxes, and it like dynamically changes your website on the fly, kind of without you having to make any changes, and then reruns the test, so you can kind of experiment with things on your live site, which in general is not a good idea. So yeah, I love that product. And then just to reiterate that the point that I mentioned about the difference between doing these type of lab tests and collecting real user metrics, which is an approach where you are using like a service provider that provides RUM. It's called RUM data. And this is a way of actually measuring how users experience your site in the wild, which could be quite different than what you see in Lighthouse, especially if your users come primarily from a geography where, say, their internet speeds are slow or they have low-powered devices. It may uncover problems that you have that you won't even see when you do those lab tests. So I would encourage people to look into trying to gather that kind of data. And when there's some of these services actually will combine those, so you can see both if you have that data already. But if you don't have that data in public data sets, you can also collect it yourself or using a third-party service.
Great, thank you. I want to remind everyone that this is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you. I see people keep asking about that. Okay, Joe, how do you want to wrap this up?
Well, I think, one of the things that I would say is, what hopefully is obvious hearing all of us talk is that there's a lot of folks who are behind the products that you're using in your website that are working really hard to make things better for you without you doing anything at all. So the only thing that you can do to like help get the benefits of that work is to make sure that you stay up to date with like the latest versions of the products that, as we're making improvements, you get the benefits of those products. Miriam, as you said, yes, 10up, not only are we a full service provider that works with a lot of, big companies in the WordPress space, and even beyond the WordPress space now. But 10up has a long history of providing plugins back to the open source community, as well as partnering with some companies to build bigger plugins for the ecosystem. If you go to 10up.com/giving back, at the bottom of the page, there's a big list of a bunch of the plugins that 10up has developed over the years, and our GitHub has a lot more. So would encourage you to check that out.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, 10up is definitely a major contributor to the WordPress ecosystem, and we appreciate it. Shilo, how do you want to wrap this up?
I'd like to say that, first of all, there's no magic solution for creating high-performing websites. You have to invest in it, and you have to understand what makes your website a highly performing one and what's not. Once you understand it, just like Joe mentioned and just like Adam mentioned, and I'd be happy to share one screen just from this page with insights, which is Google-based product. You can paste any of your tools or any of your URLs, and then you can test your performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO, which are web vitals in general. If we're talking about performance, you'll have all your metrics here in the numbers. And if you don't know what the numbers means and what you should and shouldn't do, you have the opportunities area here. Here you'll have some information about what can be improved or can be done to improve this one, okay? Under the opportunities. In addition, you have the diagnostics and past audits. So you can make sure that stuff are working correctly, stuff that are not working correctly and you should improve, and from a diagnostics. And one last thing, I'm sharing this screen just to make sure that everybody knows how to activate some of the Elementor's properties and features. You go to Elementor settings, and under this one, you'll have the features. Here you'll have every feature that is an ongoing experiment based on performance or general feature. You can activate it and make sure everything is active. Okay, this is something really important. You can find everything here, the optimized image loading and optimized Gutenberg loading, just as like I mentioned, and more features that we offer. The reason that sometimes it's not activated by default on your website, existing one, is due to measures that we take to make sure your site won't break. So do this, back up your website before, and make sure your plugin, your website is already backed up before doing this. In addition, you'll find some more cool stuff if you nitpick and knit in the advanced tab, just like Google Fonts, enable, disable, fonts load method. You can change it from anywhere. Don't load font awesome 4 if you're not using it. And in general, this would what should help you get better response. This is it from my end.
Great. Oops, wait, here. So I just want to remind everyone about the Elementor campaign that's running now, 30-day free trial. Please, you can go check it out. Scan the QR code or go to element.to/make-sense. Makes-sense. It's right here. And also, if you provide us with feedback during the trial, you can become eligible for winning some amazing prizes. We have prize packs that are listed on that page. They include PlayStations, MacBook Pros, Mac Studios, and like crazy stuff. So check that out. Huge thank you to our speakers, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And I hope that our viewers found this useful. Like I said, we'll be sending a recording. And yeah, thanks for joining us. I know that it's hard to find the time to join live, so I appreciate that. And yeah, so stay tuned for the email, and have a good day, night, or whatever it is by you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.